Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at something really interesting, this idea about DNA results. They tell us a lot about ancestry, sure, but maybe not the whole picture of a person's life.
That's right. We've been looking at these excerpts from Your Forever Story, Beyond DNA, and it really drives home what's missing from just the genetic side of things.
Yeah, you get these percentages, right, where your ancestors might have come from. It's fascinating data, no doubt.
Absolutely fascinating. But like the source says, DNA doesn't hold the memories. It can't share a laugh, can't pass on wisdom, learn the hard way.
So our mission for this deep dive is really to explore what makes up that richer personal legacy, the stuff beyond the genes, and importantly, how we can maybe preserve and share that.
And the source actually talks about a service for Everstory that aims to do just that, kind of transform those DNA results into something more, like a living legacy.
Okay, let's dig into that. First off, what are the limits? Why doesn't DNA give us the full story?
Well, think of DNA as the foundation, maybe. The blueprint of where. It gives you geographical roots, percentages.
Like you're 30% Italian? That sort of thing.
Exactly. But it won't tell you about, say, your grandfather's war stories, or the specific recipe your grandmother perfected, or, just their voice.
Right. It doesn't capture the person, the experiences that shape them.
Mm-hmm. And so much of who we feel we are comes from those stories, those moments, not just the genetic markers.
Okay, so it gives us the roots, but maybe not the tree itself, the branches, the leaves. Which brings us to this living legacy idea through Forever Story. What does the source say that actually involves?
The source really pushes this idea of capturing the essence, the sights, the sounds, making the person feel present somehow.
How does it suggest doing that?
It talks about key things like lessons learned, maybe a piece of advice distilled from a lifetime, also personal memories, those really defining moments. And crucially, messages for the future. Messages of love, hope, maybe strength, aimed at descendants. It's about connecting generations with more than just a family tree.
Connecting them with the spirit of the people before them.
Yeah, exactly. Their values, their resilience.
And the source seems to think actually experiencing these stories, hearing them perhaps, is really powerful. More powerful than just knowing the facts.
Oh, definitely. It suggests that engaging with these narratives creates this deep sense of connection. It reminds you of where you fit in the bigger family picture, and maybe even of your own strength, seeing what others went through.
It makes you think, doesn't it? What hits harder, a percentage breakdown? Or hearing your great aunt tell a story in her own voice?
It's gotta be the voice, the story, for most people, I think.
So the main argument from the source is really that who someone was is so much more than their origins. It's about how they lived their life.
Yes, how they lived, what they actually believed in, the impact they had, big or small. The DNA is the where from.
But the legacy is the how and the
Yeah, precisely. The source puts it beautifully. Your story is more than where you're from. It's how you lived. It's what you believed. It's the impact you leave behind. That really sums it up.
And it's not just an observation, right? The source is kind of pushing us to do something about this.
Yes, there's a clear call to action. It urges people to be proactive. Don't let those non-genetic parts of the story just fade away.
To actively document them.
Right. To be the voice, be the memory, as it says. And it mentions services like Forever Story as one way to potentially do that. It's about taking ownership, really.
Making sure your narrative or your family's narrative actually lasts.
Because while the DNA connects us biologically to the past,
it's the stories, the values, the experiences that really shape how future generations understand who they are and where they came from in a more human way.
Couldn't have said it better. That's the core of it.
So if we boil it all down, what's the main takeaway for everyone listening?
I think the key thing is DNA results are amazing. They give us a valuable foundation, a starting point for ancestry. But the real substance, the heart of your personal story and your family legacy, that lives in the experiences, the lessons, the values that you actively share and preserve.
The genetics are just one part of a much bigger, richer story.
Exactly. A very intricate and ultimately more meaningful puzzle.
Okay, so here's something for you to think about then. What parts of your own forever story, the parts that aren't in your genes, do you want to make sure don't get lost? What memories, what lessons, what messages are important for you to pass on? Definitely food for thought. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.